My sister, pregnant with fifth kid, demanded I quit my job to be her free nanny. I said no and left. She called the cops and claimed I stole $10,000. But she didn't know I found Grandma's stolen documents. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, grab a warm cup of tea and get comfortable. I'd love to know what time of day you're watching this video. Please comment M for morning, A for afternoon, or E for evening. Now, let me take you into this story. The fork in my hand trembled, hovering over a plate of cold spaghetti. Across the table, my sister Tiffany was beaming, her smile stretching so wide it looked painful. My mother, Linda, was clapping her hands together like a seal at a circus, tears of joy already streaming down her face. My brother-in-law, Travis, just sat there with that smug, self-satisfied grin he always wore when he thought he'd gotten away with something. "We're pregnant." Tiffany squealed again, as if saying it a second time would make the reality of it any less terrifying for me. Number 5. Can you believe it? I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked around the chaotic dining room. Caleb, my 15-year-old nephew, didn't look up from his plate. He just poked at his food, his shoulders hunched. 12-year-old Bella was rolling her eyes. 9-year-old Hunter was already asking if he had to share a room again, and little 6-year-old Sophie was crying because her juice had spilled and nobody was moving to clean it up except me. 5 kids. They could barely afford the 4 they had. Tiffany hadn't worked a day since she got pregnant with Caleb at 17. Travis was currently between jobs, which was a polite way of saying he spent his days playing video games in the basement while I worked double shifts at the coffee shop to buy groceries. Congratulations, I managed to choke out, grabbing a rag to wipe up Sophie's juice. Wow. We have big news, though, Tiffany said, her voice dropping to a serious, businesslike tone. She reached under the table and pulled out a piece of paper. Since I'm going to be high risk this time, and Travis needs to focus on his networking, we've made a decision. She slid the paper across the sticky tablecloth toward me. I put down the juice-soaked rag and picked it up. It was a typed letter. My eyes scanned the text, and my stomach dropped to my shoes. It was a resignation letter. Addressed to my manager at the coffee shop. Signed with my name. "What is this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "We need you here full-time, Megan," Tiffany said, as if she were explaining that the sky is blue. "With the new baby coming, and the other 4, I can't manage the house alone." Mom agrees. "You're going to quit the shop and focus on the family." I looked at my mother. She nodded vigorously. "It's the right thing to do, Megan," Mom said, reaching over to pat my hand. "You're 29. You don't have a husband. You don't have children of your own. Your life is uncomplicated. Your sister needs you. It's time you stop playing around with coffee beans and do something meaningful." Meaningful? I felt a hot flash of anger crawl up my neck. I was the one paying the electric bill this month. I was the one who bought Caleb's school shoes because Travis spent the shoe money on a new gaming headset. "I can't quit my job, Tiffany," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have bills. I have student loans." "Oh, don't be selfish," Travis chimed in, leaning back in his chair. "We've done the math. If you live here rent-free, you don't need a salary. We'll provide room and board. It's an even trade. You help with the kids and the house, we give you a roof." They weren't asking me. They were telling me. They had planned this. They saw me not as a sister or a daughter, but as a resource. An asset to be liquidated for their convenience. I looked at the resignation letter again. The cursor on the screen must have blinked for a long time while they typed this out, discussing how to end my financial independence so I would be trapped here forever. "Just sign it, Megan," Tiffany said, pushing a pen toward me. "I'll drop it off for you tomorrow morning. You can start the new routine on Monday." The room went silent. Even the kids stopped fidgeting. They were all watching me. I looked at the pen. It was a cheap, plastic blue pen. The same kind of pen I used to write my college essays with, back before everything fell apart. The same kind of pen I used to sign the lease on my bakery, before I lost it all. I looked at my mother, the woman who was supposed to protect me, and saw only cold calculation in her eyes. I looked at my sister, the golden child, who had never heard the word no in her entire life. And I looked at the resignation letter. I picked up the pen. My hand was trembling so hard I could barely hold it. "Good girl," Travis smirked. I held the pen over the paper, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. They thought they had won. They always won. But as the ink tip hovered over the dotted line, something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet, terrifying sound of a bridge collapsing. Before I tell you what I did with that pen, I want to say thank you to everyone watching. If you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family, or if you've ever been pushed into a corner by the people you love, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It helps me feel a little less alone in this story. To understand why my hand was shaking over that paper, you have to understand how I ended up in this nightmare. It wasn't just bad luck. It was a systematic dismantling of my life, orchestrated by the people sitting at that table. I wasn't always the failure of the family. 10 years ago, I was the smart one. The talented one. I had a full ride to a prestigious design school in New York waiting for me. I had a savings account with $15,000 in it, money I had scraped together from babysitting and summer jobs since I was 12. It was my escape fund. My ticket out of this suffocating town. But the summer before I left, disaster struck. Or rather, Tiffany struck. She was 19, unmarried, and pregnant with Caleb. She and Travis had broken up for the 10th time, and she needed a reliable car to get to doctor appointments. I came home one day to find my bank account empty. Zero balance. My mother had been a joint holder on the account since I was a minor. She had drained every cent. When I screamed, when I cried until I threw up, she just looked at me with that pitying expression she uses when she thinks I'm being unreasonable. "Tiffany needs it more, Megan," she had said. "You're smart. You'll figure something else out. You can get loans. But Tiffany, she's bringing a life into the world. That's a sacred duty." I lost my housing deposit for college. I couldn't afford the move. I had to decline the acceptance. I stayed home, took community college classes, and worked. I buried my resentment because that's what I was trained to do. I was the sturdy one. The one who could take a hit and keep standing. Then, 3 years ago, I thought I finally had my second chance. My grandmother, Nana Rose, had passed away. She was the only person who ever really saw me. She loved art, and she hated how Mom spoiled Tiffany. When she died, Mom told me Nana had died in debt. There was no inheritance. But I had saved up again. I opened a small bakery downtown. It was my dream. I put everything into it. Tiffany introduced me to a friend of hers, a guy named Brad, who she said was an investment genius. She pushed him on me. "Let him handle the books, Megan, you just bake." I trusted her. I wanted to believe my sister finally supported me. 6 months later, Brad vanished. Along with the operating capital, the tax money, everything. The bakery collapsed overnight. I was left with debt and a broken heart. My fiancé, Mark, couldn't handle the financial ruin. He left too. And there was Tiffany, opening her arms. "Oh, Megan, you poor thing. Come stay with us. Just for a while. Until you get back on your feet. It'll be good for you to be around family. Healing." It was a trap. I see that now. It wasn't an offer of shelter, it was an acquisition of labor. Slowly, staying for a while turned into "Can you watch the kids while I run to the store," which turned into "Travis and I are going away for the weekend, hold down the fort." I started paying for groceries because the fridge was always empty. I started paying the internet bill because Travis claimed he needed it for job hunting, though I only ever saw him playing shooters. For 3 years, I had been the invisible engine keeping their chaotic lives running. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to pack lunches. I braided hair. I helped with algebra. I drove them to soccer. Then I went to my shift at the coffee shop, stood on my feet for 8 hours dealing with rude customers, and came home to cook dinner and clean up the disaster zone they left behind. I was exhausted. My bones ached with a tiredness that sleep couldn't fix. I was 29 years old, and I owned nothing. No car, no house, no savings. Just a mountain of resentment and a family that viewed me as a utility. And now, looking at this resignation letter, I realized the final phase of their plan. They didn't want me to get back on my feet. They wanted to cut off my legs. If I quit my job, I would have zero income. I would be completely dependent on them for food and shelter. I would be a prisoner in this house, a nanny they didn't have to pay, a maid they could scream at. I looked at Caleb across the table. He was watching me with intense eyes. He knew. He was the only one who saw the reality. He saw me crying in the laundry room at midnight. He saw his mother sleeping until noon while I scrubbed the toilets. I thought about the $10,000 Mom stole for Tiffany's car. I thought about the bakery. I thought about the lie that Nana Rose died broke. Something shifted in my chest. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. I gripped the pen tighter. Travis was still smirking, waiting for me to sign my life away. Oh, I'll sign something, I thought. But it won't be this. The silence in the dining room stretched so thin it felt like a rubber band about to snap. Travis tapped his fingers on the table, impatient. Well? Come on, Megan. My show starts in 10 minutes. Sign it. I took a deep breath, the smell of stale spaghetti sauce filling my nose. I looked down at the resignation letter one last time. Then, very slowly, I picked it up with both hands. I ripped it in half. Then I put the two halves together and ripped them again. I dropped the confetti-like pieces onto Tiffany's plate, right on top of her uneaten garlic bread. No, I said. My voice was calm, which scared me more than if I had screamed. Excuse me? Tiffany's eyes bulged. Her face went from smug to shocked in a nanosecond. I said no, I repeated, standing up. My legs felt shaky, but I locked my knees. I am not quitting my job. I am not becoming your full-time nanny. And I am certainly not paying you rent to live in a house where I already do all the cooking, cleaning, and child-rearing. Mom gasped, clutching her pearls that I'm pretty sure she bought with money she borrowed from me last Christmas and never paid back. Megan! How dare you speak to your sister like that? She's pregnant. You're upsetting the baby. I don't care, Mom, I said, turning my gaze on her. I'm done. I'm done being the doormat. I'm done being the ATM. If you want a nanny, hire one. If you can't afford one, maybe you shouldn't be having a fifth child when you can't take care of the 4 you already have. Travis jumped up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Who do you think you are? You think you're better than us? You're a failed baker with a minimum wage job. You're almost 30 and you're alone. No husband. No prospects. You should be grateful we let you stay here. You're worthless without us. The word stung, hitting all my deepest insecurities. But before I could respond, a chair crashed over. Shut up, Dad. It was Caleb. My quiet, 15-year-old nephew who usually tried to blend into the wallpaper. He was standing up, his fists clenched at his sides, his face red. Caleb! Tiffany shrieked. Don't you dare talk to your father that way. He's right though. Caleb yelled, his voice cracking. Aunt Megan does everything. She wakes us up. She makes our lunch. She helps me with my history projects because you guys don't even know what century it is. She's the only one who actually cares about us. You guys just use her. Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. Caleb was breathing hard, tears standing in his eyes. He had never spoken up like this before. Tiffany stood up slowly. She walked over to Caleb. For a second, I thought she was going to hug him, or maybe just yell. Instead, she slapped him. It was a loud, crisp sound that echoed off the walls. Caleb's head snapped to the side. You ungrateful little brat, Tiffany hissed, her face contorted in ugly rage. I put a roof over your head. I gave you life. Don't you ever take her side against this family. That was it. The last thread of obligation I felt toward my sister snapped. Don't you touch him! I screamed, lunging forward to pull Caleb behind me. I pushed Tiffany back. She stumbled, more from surprise than force, but she immediately grabbed her stomach and started wailing. Ah! My baby! She pushed me. Travis, she pushed me. Travis advanced on me, his face purple. Get out, he growled. Get out of my house. Now. I will, I said, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I'm leaving. And I'm not coming back to be your slave. I grabbed my purse from the counter. I didn't have a car, Travis had borrowed it last month and totaled it, and I was still fighting with the insurance company, so I had to walk. I looked at Caleb one last time. His cheek was already turning red. I wanted to take him with me, but I knew that would be kidnapping. I couldn't protect him if I was in jail. I'll come back for you, I whispered to him. I promise. I walked out the front door into the night. It had started to rain, a cold, miserable drizzle that soaked through my thin waitress uniform instantly. I didn't care. I walked down the driveway, leaving behind the screaming, the crying, and the toxic suffocating weight of the last 3 years. I had nowhere to go. I had about $40 in my wallet. But as the rain washed over my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt free. But I didn't know that the war had just begun. And I didn't know that my exit was about to trigger a chain of events that would expose secrets darker than I could have ever imagined. I walked for 3 miles in the rain. My shoes squelched with every step, and I was shivering violently by the time I reached the one place I knew I would be safe. Jenna's apartment building was an old brick walk-up on the other side of town. Jenna had been my roommate in college for that one brief year before I had to drop out. She was the only friend who had stuck by me after the bakery failure. She was a paralegal, sharp as a tack and brutally honest. When she opened the door and saw me, drenched, shaking, mascara running down my face, she didn't ask questions. She just pulled me inside and wrapped me in a blanket. 10 minutes later, I was sitting on her couch with a mug of hot tea, retelling the entire disaster at the dinner table. When I got to the part about the resignation letter, Jenna set her mug down on the coffee table with a loud clack. That is financial abuse, Megan, she said, her voice hard. It's not just family drama. They are systematically isolating you and exploiting your labor. It's textbook. I know, I whispered, staring into my tea. But what choice do I have? They're my family. And the kids. Caleb. We need to look at this logically, Jenna said, pacing the small living room. She switched into her paralegal mode. Something doesn't add up, Meg. You've told me that Tiffany hasn't worked in 15 years. Travis has been unemployed for 2. You pay for groceries and utilities. Yeah, I nodded. So, how are they paying the mortgage? Jenna asked, stopping in front of me. That house is huge. Even if they inherited it, the property taxes alone in that district are thousands a year. And Tiffany carries a Louis Vuitton bag. I saw her Instagram. She got a new iPhone last month. Where is that cash coming from? I frowned. I assumed, credit cards? Or maybe Travis gets unemployment. Unemployment doesn't buy designer bags, Jenna countered. And credit cards have limits. Megan, listen to me. When your grandmother died, you said there was no will, right? Right, I said. Mom said Nana died with massive medical debt. The estate was insolvent. Did you ever see the paperwork? Jenna asked. No, I admitted. I was so depressed about the bakery. I just let Mom handle it. Jenna sat down next to me, her expression serious. Your Nana Rose adored you. She hated how your mom enabled Tiffany. Does it make sense that she would leave absolutely nothing to you, but somehow your mom and Tiffany are living in her house and spending money like water? A chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the rain. I thought about the bakery partner Tiffany introduced me to. I thought about the college fund. You think they stole my inheritance? I asked, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I think you need to find out, Jenna said. You need to go back there. I can't go back. I cried. Travis kicked me out. You have to go back to get your things, right? Your clothes? Your documents? Jenna said. Go back. Play nice. Apologize if you have to. But while you're there, you need to dig. You need to find the financial records. If there's a will, or a trust, or anything they hid, it's in that house. I felt sick. The idea of going back into that snake pit made my stomach turn. But then I remembered Caleb's face when Tiffany slapped him. I remembered the resignation letter. If Jenna was right, if they had been living off money that was supposed to be mine while treating me like a servant, then walking away wasn't enough. I needed leverage. I'll do it, I said, my voice hardening. I'll go back tomorrow. I'll tell them I panicked. I'll tell them I'm ready to negotiate. Jenna nodded. Be careful, Megan. If they are hiding something big, they're going to be dangerous if they think you're catching on. I slept on Jenna's couch that night, but I didn't sleep well. I dreamed of my grandmother. In the dream, she was trying to hand me a box, but Tiffany kept snatching it away, laughing with a mouthful of sharp teeth. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the sky was still gray. I texted Tiffany. I'm sorry. I overreacted. Can I come home and talk? She replied 3 minutes later. Mom says you can come back if you apologize to Travis and sign the paper. And you're on probation. Probation. In my own home. Or what I thought was my home. I swallowed my pride, or at least buried it deep down where they couldn't see it. Okay, I texted back. I'll be there in an hour. I wasn't going back as a victim this time. I was going back as a spy. And I wasn't leaving until I found out exactly how they were paying for those designer bags. The house was quiet when I unlocked the front door. The kids were at school, except for little Sophie who was napping. Tiffany was on the couch watching a reality show, a bag of chips balanced on her growing bump. She didn't look at me when I walked in. You're lucky Travis is forgiving, she said, her eyes glued to the TV. The resignation letter is on the counter. Sign it before you unpack. I'll sign it tonight, I lied, keeping my voice meek. I just want to go lie down for a bit. My head is pounding. Make sure you start dinner by 4, she commanded. And clean the bathroom. It smells. I walked past her, fighting the urge to dump the bag of chips on her head. I went to my small room in the back of the house. I waited there for hours, listening. I heard Travis come home. I heard the kids return from school. I went out, cooked tacos for them, apologized to Travis, who grunted and told me to watch my attitude, and played the part of the beaten dog perfectly. But my mind was racing. Jenna had said to look for financial records. I knew Mom kept all the important papers in her home office down the street, but Tiffany was lazy. She kept her stuff in the basement, in what used to be Nana's sewing room. I waited until 2 a.m. The house was finally silent. Travis's snoring vibrated through the thin walls. I crept out of my room. The floorboards creaked, and I froze, holding my breath. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator. I tiptoed down the basement stairs, using the flashlight on my phone. The basement was a disaster area, piles of old clothes, broken toys, boxes of junk Travis refused to throw away. The air smelled of mildew and old cardboard. I picked my way through the maze to the back room. This was where Tiffany dumped everything she didn't want to deal with. I started opening boxes. Old tax returns from 5 years ago. Caleb's baby photos. Useless junk. I was about to give up when I saw it. Tucked behind a stack of old Playboy magazines, Travis's collection, gross, was a heavy, gray metal lockbox. It wasn't the kind you buy at Walmart. It looked old. And on the side, there was a faded sticker, Henderson and Associates Estate Law. My heart skipped a beat. Henderson. That was Nana's lawyer. The box was locked. I looked around for a key, but I knew I wouldn't find one. I grabbed a rusty screwdriver from a nearby shelf. I knew I shouldn't damage it, but I was desperate. I jammed the screwdriver into the latch and twisted. The metal screeched. I froze, looking up at the ceiling, waiting for footsteps. Silence. I exerted all my strength. With a loud pop, the latch gave way. I opened the lid. Inside, there were no stacks of cash. Just papers. But as I began to read, the papers were worth more than gold. Or rather, they explained where the gold had gone. The first document was a letter. Handwriting I recognized instantly. Nana Rose. My dearest Megan, it began. If you are reading this, I am gone. I know your mother and sister have always made you feel small. I want you to know that you are the giant among them. Tears pricked my eyes. I wiped them away quickly. I couldn't afford to cry now. I flipped to the next document. It was a copy of a last will and testament. Dated 2 weeks before Nana died. I, Rose Miller, being of sound mind, do hereby leave my property at 42 Oak Street, the house we were standing in, and the contents of my investment trust, valued at approximately $500,000, to my granddaughter, Megan Miller. I gasped, covering my mouth with my hand to stifle the sound. The house. The money. It was all left to me. Specifically to me. To my daughter Linda and granddaughter Tiffany, I leave my antique china collection and my prayers that they find their own way. I flipped to the next page. It was a bank statement from the trust. Dated last month. The balance was not $500,000. It was $42,000. Over the last 4 years, hundreds of withdrawals had been made. $5,000 here. $2,000 there. Living expenses. Medical bills. Home repairs. And then I saw the document that made me want to vomit. It was a power of attorney form, signed by me. But I had never signed it. It was dated from the week after the bakery failed, when I was in a deep depression and barely left my bed. The signature looked like mine, but the loop on the G was wrong. They had forged my signature. They had used a fake power of attorney to seize control of the inheritance I didn't even know I had. They had stolen my house. They had stolen $500,000. And then they had enslaved me in my own property. I sat on the cold concrete floor, surrounded by the evidence of the greatest betrayal of my life. My hands were shaking so hard the papers rattled. They weren't just bad family. They were criminals. I heard a noise upstairs. A footstep. Then the bathroom door opening. I scrambled to shove the papers back into the box. I had to get out. I had to get this to Jenna. But I couldn't take the box, they would notice it was gone. I pulled out my phone. My hands were trembling, but I managed to open the camera app. I started snapping photos. Every page. Every signature. Every bank statement showing Tiffany's withdrawals for Nordstrom and Mercedes-Benz Finance. I was halfway through the stack when the basement door at the top of the stairs creaked open. "Who's down there?" Travis's voice boomed. I froze. The light from the hallway spilled down the stairs, cutting through the darkness. If he found me now, with these papers, I didn't know what he would do. But remembering the rage in his eyes yesterday, I feared for my life. I shoved the lockbox behind the stack of magazines just as heavy footsteps started descending the stairs. I killed the flashlight on my phone and shoved it into my pajama pocket. My mind raced. Think, Megan, think. I grabbed a basket of laundry I had left down there 2 days ago. I stood up, trying to look casual in the dark. "It's just me, Travis," I called out, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. I remembered I left Caleb's soccer uniform in the dryer. He needs it for tomorrow. Travis stopped halfway down the stairs. He squinted into the gloom. "At 3 a.m.? Are you psycho?" "I couldn't sleep," I said, walking toward the stairs with the laundry basket on my hip. "And I didn't want you yelling at me in the morning if the laundry wasn't done." He grunted, scratching his stomach. "Yeah, well. Keep it down. Some of us actually have important things to do tomorrow." I squeezed past him on the stairs, my heart hammering so hard against my ribs I thought he must hear it. I could smell the stale beer on his breath. He didn't look at the laundry basket. He turned around and lumbered back up to the bedroom. I made it to my room and locked the door. I collapsed against it, sliding down to the floor. I checked my phone. The photos were there. Blurry, but readable. I had the proof. But I couldn't leave yet. If I ran now, they would know I found something. They would destroy the originals before I could get a lawyer involved. I needed to be smart. The next 2 days were an exercise in torture. I signed the resignation letter, but I signed it with a slightly different signature, just in case. I cooked. I cleaned. I let Tiffany boss me around. I let Travis make his misogynistic jokes. Inside, I was screaming. Every time I looked at the walls of the house, I thought, this is mine. This is my house. Every time Tiffany flaunted her new watch, I thought, that's my bakery money. I needed to get out, but I couldn't just vanish. I needed a plan. On Thursday afternoon, I found a moment alone with Caleb. He was in the kitchen, trying to make a sandwich. "Hey," I whispered, leaning against the counter. He looked at me, his eyes still slightly bruised from the slap. "You okay, Aunt Megan? You've been quiet." "I'm okay," I said. "Listen, Caleb. I need to show you something." I taught him how to run the washing machine. I showed him how to make spaghetti sauce from scratch. I showed him where the emergency cash jar was hidden, the one I put money in, that Tiffany didn't know about. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked, frowning. "Because you're the man of the house now, Caleb," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You're smarter than them. You need to know how to take care of yourself and the little ones." "Are you leaving again?" he asked, panic rising in his voice. I grabbed his shoulders. "I have to fix something, Caleb. Something big. but I need you to be brave. Can you do that? He nodded slowly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. Here, he said, pressing it into my hand. I forgot to give you this. I recorded them. After you left the other night. They were talking about money. And you. I squeezed the USB drive. Thank you, I whispered. Hide the little ones when things get loud, okay? That night, I waited until everyone was asleep. I didn't pack bags this time. I took only my backpack, my laptop, and the folder of personal documents I had managed to swipe from Mom's purse when she visited earlier that day. I crept out the back door. My old sedan, which I had finally gotten back from the shop that afternoon, paid for with the last of my credit card limit, was waiting down the street. I drove to the 24-hour storage unit I had rented online. I dropped off my few possessions. Then I drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. I didn't go to Jenna's. I didn't want to lead them to her if they came looking. I sat on the lumpy motel bed and opened my laptop. I plugged in Caleb's USB drive. The video was shaky, filmed from the top of the stairs. It showed Tiffany and Travis in the kitchen. Video transcript: Tiffany, she can't quit. If she quits, she's here all day. She might start snooping. Travis, she's too stupid to snoop. Besides, your mom said the trust is almost empty anyway. We need to figure out how to refinance the house before the bank realizes Megan's signature on the deed transfer was shaky. Tiffany, don't say that loud. Just make sure she stays busy. If she finds out the house is hers, we're homeless. I closed the laptop. Tears streamed down my face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. They had confessed. On video. I had the will. I had the bank statements. I had the confession. I was ready to go to war. But I underestimated how dirty they were willing to fight. The next morning, I didn't go back to the house. I went straight to the coffee shop for my shift. I hadn't turned in the resignation letter Tiffany made me sign. I needed the money, and honestly, the normalcy of brewing espresso felt like a lifeline. My phone blew up around 9 a.m. 20 missed calls from Tiffany. 10 from Mom. Text messages ranging from "Where are you?" to "You ungrateful bitch, wait until I find you." I turned my phone off. I was serving a latte to a regular customer when the front door of the shop chimed. I looked up, expecting another caffeine addict. Instead, 2 uniformed police officers walked in. They scanned the room. One of them, a tall officer with a buzz cut, locked eyes with me. He pointed. That's her. My stomach dropped. I froze, the pitcher of steamed milk still in my hand. Megan Miller? The officer asked, approaching the counter. Yes. I squeaked. Please step out from behind the counter, ma'am. You're under arrest. The shop went silent. My manager, Dave, came rushing out from the back. Whoa, what is going on here? We have a warrant for the arrest of Megan Miller for grand larceny and theft of property valued over $10,000, the officer said, pulling out handcuffs. What? I gasped. That's insane. I didn't steal anything. Your sister, Tiffany Miller, filed a report this morning. She claims you absconded with a diamond necklace, 2 designer watches, and $10,000 in cash from her safe. I felt the cold steel of the handcuffs click around my wrists. I was being arrested. In my apron. In front of my boss and my customers. Tears of humiliation pricked my eyes. She's lying. I shouted as they led me out. She's making it up because I moved out. Tell it to the judge, the officer said, guiding me into the back of the squad car. The ride to the station was a blur of panic. I sat in the hard plastic seat, my mind racing. They were playing dirty. They knew I had left, so they struck first to discredit me. If I was a criminal, no one would believe me about the inheritance. At the station, they put me in an interrogation room. It was cold and smelled of stale coffee. An hour later, a detective walked in. Detective Reynolds. He looked tired. "Your sister has given a sworn statement," he said, tossing a file on the table. "She says you've been stealing from them for months. She has photos of the empty safe." I took a deep breath. I needed to be calm. Panicking is what they wanted. "Detective," I said, my voice steady. "My sister is lying. I moved out yesterday because she was financially abusing me. I have evidence that she and my mother have been stealing from me for years." He raised an eyebrow. "That's a common defense. They did it first." "No," I said. "I have proof. It's on a USB drive in my backpack. My nephew recorded them admitting to fraud. And I have photos of forged documents regarding my grandmother's estate." The detective paused. He looked at me, really looked at me. He saw a terrified waitress, not a mastermind jewel thief. "You have evidence of fraud?" "Yes. And as for the theft?" I pulled out my trump card. "Caleb sent me a text this morning." Before I turned my phone off, I asked the detective to check my phone, which was in the evidence bag. He hesitated, then retrieved it. I unlocked it and navigated to Caleb's messages. There was a video file sent at 8:30 a.m. "Watch this," I told the detective. He pressed play. The video showed Tiffany, in her bedroom, frantically stuffing jewelry into a hollowed-out book on her bookshelf. Then she opened her safe, which was just a lockbox, and took out the cash that was in there, shoving it into her bra. Tiffany's voice in the video: "When the cops get here, the safe is empty. That little witch is going to jail, and Mom will bail her out only if she signs the house over officially." The detective's face went hard. He stopped the video. "Your nephew filmed this?" "Yes," I said. "He's the only honest person in that house." Detective Reynolds stood up. He unclipped the handcuffs from the bar on the table. "Sit tight, Ms. Miller. I need to make a phone call." 20 minutes later, I was released. No charges. The detective told me they were sending a unit to Tiffany's house to have a very serious conversation about filing a false police report. "You're free to go," he said. "But if I were you, I'd get a lawyer. It sounds like a civil war is brewing in your family." I walked out of the police station into the bright noon sun. I was shaking. I had almost gone to jail. They had tried to destroy me completely. I called Jenna. "I need that lawyer friend of yours," I said. "The shark." I'm ready to bite back. 3 days after the police incident, my phone rang. It was Mom. I almost didn't answer, but Jenna, who was sitting next to me in the lawyer's office, nodded. "Answer it. Put it on speaker. We need to know their next move." I swiped answer. "Megan." Mom sounded hysterical. "You have to come to the hospital." "It's Tiffany." "What happened?" I asked, my voice cold. Did the police scaring her upset her stomach? "How dare you?" Mom screamed. "She's in the ER. She started bleeding. The stress, what you did to her, the baby is in danger. The doctors say she has placenta previa. She needs total bed rest for the next 4 months or she'll lose the baby." I felt a twinge of guilt. I hated Tiffany, but I didn't want an innocent baby to die. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "I hope she recovers." "You hope?" Mom sobbed. "Megan, you have to come back. Travis is useless, he's falling apart. The house is a wreck. Caleb. Caleb refused to go to school today. He says he has to stay home to watch Sophie because no one else will. That hit me hard. Caleb dropping out of school? He was on the honor roll. He was the one with a future. I'm not coming back, Mom, I said. You guys tried to have me arrested. We'll drop the charges. Mom cried, ignoring the fact that the police had already dropped them because they were fake. Just come back. We'll pay you. We'll give you $200 a week. I looked at Mr. Henderson, the lawyer. He was a gray-haired man with eyes like flint. He scribbled something on a notepad and slid it to me. Leverage. Go back. Get access. I took a deep breath. I realized this was my chance. If I was inside the house, I could find the original will. I could get the original deed. I could record everything. I'll come back, I said into the phone. Oh, thank God. Mom wept. Under conditions, I added sharply. Silence. Then, what conditions? 1. I am not a sister or a daughter. I am a household manager. You will pay me $500 a week, in advance. 2. Travis does what I say when it comes to the house chores. If I tell him to scrub the toilet, he scrubs it. 3. I have full control over the grocery budget and household decisions. 4. And this is non-negotiable. Caleb goes back to school tomorrow. Mom hesitated. $500? Megan, we don't have that kind of money. Find it, I said. Sell one of Tiffany's handbags. Or I hang up, and you can figure out how to raise 5 kids with a bedridden daughter and a lazy son-in-law. Okay. Okay. Mom shrieked. Just come. I hung up. I looked at Mr. Henderson. We have a plan? I asked. He smiled, a shark-like grin. We have a plan. You go in there, Ms. Miller. You stabilize the situation for the children. And while you're there, you gather every scrap of paper that proves they defrauded you. In 2 weeks, we'll have enough to file a lawsuit that will leave them with nothing. I drove back to the house that evening. It looked the same, but it felt different. It wasn't a prison anymore. It was a crime scene, and I was the detective. When I walked in, the smell hit me first. Dirty diapers and stale pizza. Travis was sitting on the couch, looking pale and terrified. Caleb was in the kitchen, trying to feed Sophie cereal for dinner. When Caleb saw me, he dropped the spoon. Aunt Megan. He ran to me and hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry about the video. Mom was so mad. It's okay, I whispered back, kissing his head. You saved me, Caleb. You're a hero. I pulled away and looked at Travis. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Get up, I said. Travis looked up, blinking. What? I said get up. The sink is full of dishes. The trash is overflowing. Start cleaning. Now. He opened his mouth to argue, probably to call me a name, but then he remembered that his wife was in the hospital and he was helpless. He stood up, shoulders slumped, and walked to the sink. I walked up the stairs to Tiffany's room. It was empty for now, but she would be back in a few days for bed rest. I looked at her messy vanity table, covered in expensive makeup and jewelry. My eyes landed on the closet door. The master closet. That's where the safe was in the video. I walked over and tried the handle. Locked. I smiled. I had 4 months. I had a lawyer. And I had the keys to the castle. I wasn't just back to clean up their mess. I was back to take what was mine. Walking back into that house was like stepping into a crime scene where the criminals were still living, eating, and sleeping. I had negotiated my return, but the air was thick with a tension you could almost taste. It tasted like metallic fear and stale takeout. My new role as household manager gave me a set of keys and a terrifying amount of power that Tiffany and Travis were too desperate to understand. They saw me as their savior, the foolish sister coming back to clean up their mess because she had no life of her own. They didn't see the wolf in the apron. On my second day back, I implemented a new system. I told Travis that in order to balance the budget, I needed to do all the laundry. He looked relieved. He hated laundry. But my motivation wasn't cleanliness, it was intelligence gathering. People leave their secrets in their pockets. I was sorting through a pile of Travis's cargo shorts when I felt something hard in the coin pocket. It wasn't change. It was a small, brass key. It had a number stamped on it, 404. It didn't match any door in the house. It looked like a P.O. box key. Why would Travis, a man who barely left the couch, have a P.O. box? The mail came to the house. Unless there was mail they didn't want me, or maybe even Mom, to see. I pocketed the key. Later that afternoon, I told Tiffany I was going out to buy her specialized organic ginger tea for her nausea. She waved me away from her throne of pillows without looking up from her phone. I drove straight to the main post office downtown. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. I walked up to the wall of brass boxes. 402, 403. 404. I slid the key in. It turned smoothly. Inside, there was a stack of envelopes 3 inches thick. I pulled them all out and hurried back to my car, locking the doors before I turned on the overhead light. My heart hammered against my ribs as I sorted through them. It was a graveyard of financial ruin. First, there were the collection notices for the credit card I had suspected. The Platinum Visa in my name. The balance wasn't just $50,000 anymore, with late fees and interest, it was pushing $60,000. But that wasn't the worst of it. There were letters from a title loan company. Travis had taken a loan out against his truck, the truck Mom had bought him. It was months behind. And then, the document that made my blood run cold. A letter from a private lender. A predatory lending company that charged insane interest rates. Notice of default. They had taken out a second mortgage on the house. My house. Nana's house. I scanned the document, my eyes blurring with rage. They had forged my signature again to secure a high-interest loan of $100,000 against the equity of the home. The date on the loan was 2 years ago. Where did the money go? I wondered, staring at the dashboard. $100,000. Plus the trust fund money. Plus the credit cards. That was nearly $250,000 vanished in 3 years. I looked at the bank statements included in the pile. OnlineCasinoBet.com, -$500. OnlineCasinoBet.com, -$1,000. DraftKings, -$2,000. Louis Vuitton, -$3,500. Mercedes lease, -$900. It was a cycle of addiction and vanity. Travis was gambling away their future, and Tiffany was wearing the rest of it. They were burning down the house while they sat inside it, and they had legally tied me to the stake so I would burn with them. I took photos of every single document. I felt a cold, hard stone settle in my stomach. This wasn't just about getting the house back anymore. This was about survival. If I didn't stop them, the foreclosure notice would come, and the bank would take the only legacy Nana left me. I drove back to the house, the stack of mail hidden in my bag. When I walked into the kitchen, Travis was standing there, eating peanut butter out of the jar with a spoon. "Did you get the tea?" he mumbled. I put the grocery bag on the counter. I looked at him. I looked at this man who had gambled away my inheritance and put a lien on my home. I got the tea, Travis, I said, my voice dangerously calm. And I also decided we need to cut costs. No more premium cable. He bristled. Hey, I need my sports package. I'm networking. Networking? I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You're networking with bookies, Travis. He dropped the spoon. It clattered onto the floor. What did you say? I took a step closer to him. I was 5'4". He was 6'2". But in that moment, I felt 10 feet tall. I know about the P.O. box, Travis. His face drained of color. He looked like a deer in headlights. I know about the second mortgage, I whispered. I know about the gambling. Megan, listen, he stammered, backing up against the fridge. It's not what you think. I have a system. I'm going to win it back. I just need a little more capital. You are pathetic, I said. Does Tiffany know you lost the $100,000 from the second mortgage? Or does she think you spent it on investments? Please don't tell her, he begged, sweat beading on his forehead. The stress, the baby, if you tell her, she'll kick me out. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I won't tell her, Travis. Not yet. But from this moment on, you work for me. You are going to paint the garage. You are going to fix the leaking roof. You are going to scrub the floors until your hands bleed. And if you complain, even once, I hand that stack of mail to Tiffany. Do we understand each other? He nodded rapidly. Yes. Yes, Megan. Good, I said. Now clean up that peanut butter. I walked out of the kitchen. I had turned the enemy's lieutenant into my soldier. 1 down. 2 to go. Having Travis under my thumb was satisfying, but it wasn't the victory. The victory was in the safe. I still needed that original deed with the forged signature and the notary stamp to prove the fraud in court. Copies were good, originals were undeniable. I had tried to guess the code before and failed. I knew I had limited attempts before the electronic lock would time out and possibly alert Tiffany's phone. I needed to be smarter. I spent 3 days watching Tiffany like a hawk. Every time she asked for her purse, I watched. Every time she needed something from the closet, I offered to get it, but she always said no. I need to stretch my legs, she would say, waddling to the closet and closing the door. She was paranoid. She knew what was in there. On Friday, fate intervened. Mom came over to take Tiffany to a specialized ultrasound. They were going to be gone for at least 3 hours. Travis was in the backyard, miserably scraping paint off the garage door per my orders. The house was mine. I ran upstairs with a bag of flour and a makeup brush. I had seen this in a movie once, and I prayed it worked in real life. I went into the closet and knelt before the heavy steel safe. I brushed a fine dusting of flour over the keypad. Then I blew it away gently. The oil from fingerprints makes the flour stick. 4 buttons were clearly more smudged than the others. 1, 9, 8, and 5. I sat back. 1985, that wasn't Tiffany's birth year. It wasn't Travis's. It wasn't Mom's. Who was born in 1985? I thought about it. 1985 was the year Nana Rose's husband died. My grandfather. Tiffany didn't care about him. Mom didn't care about him. Then it hit me. 1985 was the year Tiffany won Little Miss Sunshine at the regional beauty pageant. The only thing she ever actually won in her life. The trophy was still on the mantel downstairs. I took a deep breath. I punched in the numbers. 1, 9. 8, 5. The light turned green. A heavy click echoed in the closet. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely turn the handle. I pulled the heavy door open. It was packed. There were stacks of cash, my cash wrapped in rubber bands. There was Nana's jewelry box. I opened it and saw her sapphire ring, the one Mom swore was lost in the hospital. And there, in a fireproof pouch, were the documents. I pulled them out. The original deed. The ink was still dark. I looked at the signature. Megan Miller. It was shaky. It looked like someone trying too hard to look casual. And right there, stamped in blue ink, was the notary seal of a woman named Brenda Smith. I took a photo of the stamp. I would have Henderson look her up. I bet anything Brenda Smith was a friend of Mom's. I dug deeper into the safe. Under the deed, there was a leather-bound journal. I didn't recognize it. I opened it. It was Mom's handwriting. It wasn't a diary of feelings. It was a ledger of crimes. Mom, in her arrogance, had written down everything to keep track of her lies. June 12th, transferred $5,000 from Megan's trust. Told her the bank made an error if she notices. She won't. She's too trusting. August 4th, forged the medical power of attorney. Doctor bought it. Now I control Rose's meds. I gasped. I felt the air leave my lungs. She controlled the meds? Nana didn't just die, Mom made sure she was too sedated to change her will back? September 1st, Rose is gone. The house is ours. Tiffany deserves this. Megan is strong, she can survive on scraps. Tiffany needs the help. She's my golden girl. I sat on the floor of the closet, clutching the journal. Tears streamed down my face. Not tears of sadness, but tears of pure, unadulterated horror. My mother hadn't just stolen from me. She had actively hastened her own mother's death and justified it all because I was strong enough to take the abuse. They punished me for my resilience. They bled me dry because they knew I would keep making more blood. I heard the front door open downstairs. Megan? Mom's voice. We forgot the insurance card. Panic seized me. They were back early. I shoved the deed and the journal into the waistband of my leggings, pulling my oversized t-shirt down to cover them. I threw the jewelry box back in the safe. I slammed the door shut and spun the lock. I stood up, wiping the flour off the keypad with the hem of my shirt. Megan? Are you upstairs? I grabbed a pile of towels from the shelf. I'm in the closet, Mom. Putting away laundry. I yelled back, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom walked into the bedroom just as I stepped out of the closet. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing. She looked at the towels in my hands. What were you doing in there? She asked, her voice sharp. Putting away Tiffany's towels, I said. Like you asked. She stared at me. She looked at the closet door. Then she looked back at me. You look pale, she said. I'm fine, I said, walking past her. Just a headache. I'm going to go take some aspirin. I walked out of the room, feeling the heavy weight of the journal against my skin. It felt like I was carrying a bomb. I made it to my room and locked the door. I collapsed against it, sliding to the floor. I had the deed. I had the journal. I had the proof that they were monsters. But I wasn't just going to sue them. Now that I knew about Nana, I was going to destroy them. The following week was a game of cat and mouse. I had sent photos of the journal and the deed to Henderson. He called me back within an hour. Megan, he said, his voice grave. This journal, this implies wrongful death. This upgrades everything. But we need to be careful. If they know you have this, you might be in physical danger. I know, I said. I slept with a chair wedged under my doorknob every night. But the villains weren't done yet. They had one more play. I was dusting the living room when I heard Tiffany on the phone. She was speaking in a hushed, excited whisper. "Yes, Saturday at 2 p.m. is perfect," she said. "Cash offer?" "Oh, that's wonderful." "No, the tenants will be out. We can show the whole property." I froze. Tenants? Cash offer? She was trying to sell the house. She knew the money was running out. She knew the second mortgage was overdue. Her plan was to sell the house quickly to a cash buyer, take the equity that was left, and run before anyone realized the fraud. If she sold it to a third party, getting it back would be a legal nightmare. I couldn't let that sale happen. The showing was scheduled for Saturday, the same day as her baby shower party, but earlier. The party was at 4. The buyer was coming at 2. She planned to sell the house and then celebrate with champagne. I needed to sabotage the viewing without her knowing it was me. I went to the hardware store. I bought a jar of Limburger cheese, the stinkiest substance known to man. I bought a bag of frozen shrimp. And I bought a specialized tool for removing vent covers. On Saturday morning, Tiffany was barking orders about the party setup. "Make sure the house smells like vanilla," she screamed. "I want it pristine." "Oh, it will be memorable," I promised. While Travis was distracted hanging balloons, I went to work. I removed the vent covers in the main living room and the master bedroom. I shoved the frozen shrimp deep into the ducts. It wouldn't smell yet. It would take a few hours to thaw and start to rot. Then, I went to the basement. I found the main water shutoff valve for the house. I loosened the packing nut just enough. It wouldn't leak immediately, but once the water pressure built up from everyone using the bathrooms for the party prep, it would spray. At 1:30 p.m., the shrimp began to thaw. At 1:45 p.m., a subtle scent of low-tide ocean began to waft through the living room. Tiffany sniffed the air. "What is that?" "Megan. Did you take out the trash?" "I did." I called back from the kitchen. "Maybe it's the drains?" At 2 p.m., a sleek black Mercedes pulled up. The cash buyer. A man in a suit. Tiffany put on her best smile. She waddled to the door. "Welcome. Come in." The man stepped inside. He paused. He sniffed. The smell was getting stronger. It smelled like a fishing boat that had been left in the sun for a week. "Unique aroma," the buyer said, wrinkling his nose. "Oh, we're cooking seafood for the party." Tiffany lied, her smile twitching. "Let me show you the master bedroom." They walked upstairs. I followed quietly. As they entered the master bedroom, the smell hit them like a physical wall. The shrimp in that vent had heated up nicely. And then, the coup de grace. Travis flushed the toilet in the hallway bathroom. A loud groan echoed through the pipes. And then, from the basement below, a sound like a cannon firing. "PSSSHHHH. What was that?" the buyer asked, alarmed. I don't know," Tiffany stammered. I ran up the stairs, feigning panic. "Tiffany! The basement! It's flooding! There's water everywhere!" The buyer looked at the smell. He looked at the panic. He looked at the water stain that was rapidly spreading across the ceiling from a pipe I might have accidentally loosened in the attic too. "I think I've seen enough," the buyer said coldly. "I don't do mold, and I don't do plumbing disasters." He turned and walked out. Tiffany chased after him. "Wait! We can fix it. It's just a small leak." The Mercedes peeled out of the driveway. Tiffany stood on the porch, red-faced and furious. She screamed a sound of pure frustration. She turned to me. You didn't check the pipes. This is your fault. I looked at her, fighting back a smile. I'm so sorry, Tiff. Old houses, right? They just fall apart when you don't take care of them. The sale was dead. The house was safe for now. And the shrimp were still stinking. With the buyer gone, Tiffany was in a foul mood. She forced me to spend the next hour frantically spraying air freshener to mask the shrimp smell before the party guests arrived. While I was retrieving the air freshener from the attic storage, I saw a box I hadn't noticed before. It was shoved way back in the corner, under some old holiday decorations. It was labeled Megan Old Stuff. I pulled it out. I thought maybe it was my old toys. I opened it, and my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. It was my art portfolio. The one I had submitted to the Rhode Island School of Design, RISD, 10 years ago. The one Mom told me had been lost in the mail or rejected. I opened the folder. My drawings were there. Charcoal sketches of Nana. Watercolors of the garden. They were beautiful. I had forgotten how talented I was. But sitting on top of the drawings was a letter. An envelope with the RISD logo. It had been opened. I pulled out the letter. Dear Ms. Miller, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into the fall class of. Accepted. I had been accepted. And clipped to the acceptance letter was a scholarship offer. A near full ride. Mom had told me I was rejected. She told me I wasn't good enough. She told me, see? You're a small-town girl. You belong here helping family. She had stolen the letter. She had hidden it. She had crushed my dream not because we couldn't afford it, but because she couldn't afford to lose her servant. If I went to college, who would watch Caleb? Who would clean the house? I sat on the dusty attic floor, holding the letter that would have changed my life. I traced the signature of the dean. I thought about the last 10 years. The minimum wage jobs. The coffee stains on my apron. The feeling of inferiority that I carried around like a heavy stone. I thought I was stupid. I thought I wasn't talented. It was all a lie. A manufactured reality designed to keep me compliant. I looked at the next item in the box. It was a shredded pile of paper. I recognized the colors. It was a painting I had done of Nana right before she died. Mom had shredded it to use as packing material for a box of old shoes she sold. The disrespect was total. The cruelty was absolute. I stood up. I didn't cry this time. I was done crying. Crying is for victims. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the executioner. I took the acceptance letter. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket next to the deed and the journal photos. I walked downstairs. Tiffany was screaming at Travis about the balloons. Make them straight. God, you're useless. She turned and saw me. Megan. Why do you look like that? You have dust all over you. Go change. The guests will be here in an hour. I looked at her. I looked at her bloated, selfish face. I looked at Mom, who was arranging cookies on a platter, looking like the picture of a sweet grandmother. I'm going to change, I said softly. I went to my room. I showered, scrubbing the dust of the attic and the filth of this family off my skin. I put on the red dress I had bought. I applied my lipstick like I was applying war paint. I looked in the mirror. The girl who believed she was worthless was gone. The woman looking back at me was dangerous. I walked out of the room. I checked my phone. Henderson texted, I'm parked down the street. Ready when you are. I texted back, it's showtime. The sip-and-see party, which was ridiculous because the baby wasn't born yet, was in full swing. The house was filled with 50 people. The air smelled of expensive perfume and the faint, lingering odor of the hidden shrimp, which I had blamed on a plumbing issue that was now resolved. Tiffany sat on her velvet throne, accepting gifts. "Oh, a silver rattle. Thank you," she squealed, tossing it into a pile. "Next." I walked around with a tray of champagne. I offered a glass to Mrs. Gable, the church gossip. "Megan, dear, you look striking," she said, eyeing my red dress. "A bit bold for a helper, isn't it?" I smiled. "I'm celebrating today, Mrs. Gable. It's a day of truth." She frowned, confused, but took the champagne. I saw Mom in the corner, bragging to her friends. "Yes, Tiffany is just glowing. We're so blessed. We're thinking of adding a sunroom next year. Adding a sunroom to my house. With my money." The doorbell rang. It was Henderson. I let him in. He looked sharp. He carried a briefcase that contained the legal destruction of the Miller family. "Who is this?" Tiffany asked loudly, stopping the gift opening. "This is Robert," I announced. "He's here to help with the presentation." "Presentation?" Mom asked, looking nervous. "What presentation?" "I promised Tiffany a slideshow, remember?" I said innocently. "A tribute to the family." "Oh." Tiffany clapped. "I love tributes to me." "Go ahead, set it up." Henderson connected his laptop to the massive 80-inch TV in the living room. I handed him the USB drive Caleb had given me, along with the digital files of the documents I had scanned. I signaled Caleb. He was standing by the hallway door. He nodded and quietly ushered the younger kids into the playroom. He locked the door from the inside to protect them from what was coming. I walked to the center of the room. I tapped a spoon against a champagne glass. Ding. 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 "Everyone, please." I called out. "Can I have your attention?" The room went quiet. 50 pairs of eyes turned to me. "My sister Tiffany has always been the star of this family," I began. "She's the one who gets the attention. The one who gets the support. The one who gets everything." Tiffany preened, nodding. "It's true," she whispered to her friend. "And today," I continued, my voice hardening, "I want to show you exactly what it costs to make her a star." I nodded to Henderson. He hit the spacebar. The giant screen flickered to life. The first image was not a baby photo. It was the acceptance letter from RISD. The one I found in the attic. Accepted. Full scholarship. The guest squinted. "What is that?" Someone whispered. "This," I said, pointing to the screen, "is the future I earned 10 years ago. The future my mother hid from me so I would stay here and be a servant." Mom stood up, her face draining of color. "Megan, this is not the time." Henderson hit the key again. The next image was the last will and testament of Rose Miller. The words beneficiary, Megan Miller, were highlighted in neon yellow. And next to it, the forged deed. And the practice sheet with Mom's handwriting practicing my signature. Gasps rippled through the room. That's forgery," Mrs. Higgins whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. Tiffany laughed, a high, nervous sound. "This is a joke. A prank. Megan is jealous." I turned to Tiffany. "Jealous? You think I'm jealous of a thief?" Henderson hit the key again. The video Caleb recorded played. Tiffany on screen, "If she finds out the house is hers, we're homeless. Just make sure she stays busy. Mom said the trust is almost empty anyway." The sound of Tiffany's own voice admitting the crime echoed through the silent living room. The guests were frozen. They looked from the screen to Tiffany, then to Mom. "You stole her house?" someone asked. "And her money," I added. Henderson clicked again. The spreadsheet of the credit card fraud appeared. La Mer Cream, $400. Online gambling, $5,000. Total stolen, $250,000. Mom lunged for the TV. "Turn it off. She's lying. She doctored the tapes." Henderson stepped in front of her. He was a big man. He didn't move. "Sit down, Linda. The police are already on their way." Tiffany screamed. It was a feral sound. She grabbed the silver rattle she had just unwrapped and threw it at me. It missed my head by an inch and smashed a lamp. "You ungrateful little rat!" she shrieked. "I let you live here. I gave you a purpose. My purpose is not to fund your lifestyle." I shouted back, my voice shaking the walls. "You drained my trust fund. You took a second mortgage on my house. You destroyed my art. You stole my life." Travis tried to sneak out the back door. "Where are you going, Travis?" I called out. On screen, the photo of his gambling diary appeared. Sold Megan's mixer. Sold Caleb's laptop. Caleb stepped out from the hallway. "You sold my laptop?" he yelled at his father. "You told me it was stolen." Travis cowered. I was going to buy you a better one." At that moment, the wail of sirens cut through the air. Not one siren. Many. Blue lights flashed through the windows, bathing the party in a chaotic strobe effect. The front door burst open. Detective Reynolds walked in, followed by 4 uniformed officers. Tiffany Miller. Linda Miller. Travis Miller. Tiffany tried to run. She actually tried to run, waddling toward the kitchen. An officer blocked her path. "You are under arrest for grand larceny, identity theft, forgery, and elder abuse." "Elder abuse?" Mom squeaked. "We have the journal, Linda," I said, holding up the leather book I had taken from the safe. "The one where you wrote about drugging Nana so she couldn't change the will back." Mom's legs gave out. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Not out of remorse, but out of terror. Tiffany was fighting the officers. "Don't touch me. I'm pregnant. This is my house. Get that intruder out of here," she screamed, pointing at me. "Ma'am, the deed is a forgery," the detective said calmly, snapping handcuffs on her wrists. "This house belongs to Megan Miller. You are the intruder." I watched as they cuffed my sister. I watched as they cuffed my mother. I watched as they cuffed Travis. The guests were scrambling to leave, horrified to be associated with this family. As they dragged Tiffany out, she looked at me. Her eyes were black with hate. "I hope you die alone, Megan," she screamed. "You have nothing. No one loves you." I looked at Caleb, who was standing by my side. I looked at Henderson, who gave me a nod of respect. "I have the truth, Tiffany," I said quietly. "And that's enough." The room cleared out. The police cars drove away. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was clean. If you are still listening to this story, please help me by liking the video and commenting the number 1 below. Let me know that you are amazing, and I understand that you have been with me throughout this journey. Your help is a huge encouragement, cheering me on. Please comment number 1 so I can recognize you, and now, listen to me tell the rest of my story. The silence after the sirens was deafening. The party decorations, the gold balloons, the half-eaten cake, looked like artifacts from a fallen civilization. I stood in the middle of the ruin of my family. I was shaking. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving me cold and nauseous. Aunt Megan? I turned. Caleb was standing there. Behind him, the playroom door opened, and Bella, Hunter, and Sophie peeked out. They looked terrified. "Where are Mom and Dad?" Hunter asked, his voice small. I knelt down. I didn't lie to them. I would never lie to them the way my family lied to me. They made some bad choices, I said gently. The police had to take them away for a while. Are they coming back? Bella asked. Not tonight, I said. Social services arrived 20 minutes later. Ms. Davis, the caseworker, was a stern woman with kind eyes. She walked through the house, taking notes. She saw the smashed lamp. She saw the mess. This is a traumatic environment, she said, clicking her pen. Typically, in cases where both parents are arrested, the children are placed in emergency foster care. No, I said, standing up. No foster care. They stay with me. Ms. Davis looked at me. You are the aunt? I am the owner of this house, I said, handing her the legal documents Henderson had prepared. I am the stable guardian. I have been raising them for years. Ask them. She interviewed the kids separately. I waited in the kitchen, holding my breath. If I lost them, everything I did would be for nothing. Finally, she came back. Caleb is very articulate, she said. He says you are the only parent he's ever really known. She looked at the younger ones clinging to my legs. I'm granting temporary kinship placement, she said. But you need to clean this mess up. And you need to be at family court on Monday at 9 a.m. It's going to be a fight. The mother will fight you from jail. I'll be there, I promised. That night, none of the kids wanted to sleep in their rooms. We pulled all the mattresses into the living room and made a giant fort. I slept by the door, baseball bat in hand, guarding my pack. Monday morning came. The courtroom was cold and sterile. Tiffany was there via video link from the county jail. She looked wrecked. Her hair was matted, her makeup smeared. When she saw me, she started screaming. She kidnapped my kids. She framed me. The judge, Judge Patterson, banged his gavel. Order! Ms. Miller, one more outburst and I will mute you. Henderson presented our case. He laid out the financial abuse. He laid out the neglect. He showed the school records. Caleb had missed 30 days of school to babysit. He showed the medical records. Hunter's asthma prescription hadn't been refilled in months because Tiffany spent the money on a purse. But the nail in the coffin was Mom. Mom's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client, Linda Miller, would like to make a statement. She is willing to testify against her daughter, Tiffany Miller, in exchange for leniency regarding the restitution. Tiffany gasped. Mom? Mom stood up, looking frail and pathetic in her orange jumpsuit. She didn't look at Tiffany. It was Tiffany's idea, Mom lied. She made me forge the deed. She threatened to keep the grandkids away from me if I didn't help her get the money. I was a victim of her manipulation. Liar! Tiffany screamed. It was your idea. You hated Megan. You said she was useless. The judge watched them turn on each other like rats in a bucket. He looked at me. I was sitting quietly, holding Caleb's hand. It is the opinion of this court, the judge said, that these children are in imminent danger in the care of their parents or grandmother. Temporary custody is awarded to Megan Miller. I let out a sob of relief. But the war wasn't over. Tiffany was pregnant. The baby, Phoenix, was due in 2 months. I will not let you take my baby. Tiffany spat at the camera before the feed cut. I walked out of the courtroom. I had the kids. But I knew Tiffany would use that unborn baby as her last weapon. 2 months later, I got the call. Tiffany was in labor in the prison ward. I went to the hospital. Not because I wanted to see her, but because I needed to be there for the baby. I wasn't allowed in the room. I waited in the hallway, listening to the sounds of a life entering a broken world. When baby Phoenix was born, social services took him immediately. Tiffany wasn't even allowed to hold him. She screamed my name from the delivery room. "Megan! Tell them! I'm his mother!" I stood in the doorway. She looked at me, sweaty and desperate. "Please," she whispered. "Don't let them take him to strangers." I looked at her. For a second, I felt pity. But then I remembered the shredded art. I remembered the years of slavery. "He won't go to strangers, Tiffany," I said. "He's coming home with me." She started crying. Not angry tears, but defeated tears. She knew she had lost. The criminal trial followed a month later. It was a spectacle. Mom testified against Tiffany. Tiffany testified against Mom. Travis testified against everyone to save his own skin. The truth about Nana's death came out. The autopsy was reviewed. While they couldn't prove murder, they proved neglect. Mom had over-medicated her. The jury didn't hesitate. Tiffany, 8 years. Mom, 5 years. Travis, 2 years. When the sentences were read, Tiffany didn't scream. She just slumped in her chair. She looked small. The golden child had finally tarnished. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright sunlight. I had a baby carrier in one hand and Caleb's hand in the other. "It's over," Caleb said. "Yeah," I said, taking a deep breath of fresh air. "It's over." I sold the house. I couldn't live there. Every shadow reminded me of them. I sold it to a nice young couple who didn't know its history. With the money, and the restitution the court seized from Mom's accounts, I bought a fixer-upper on 5 acres of land outside of town. It was hard. Raising 5 kids alone is no joke. There were nights I cried in the bathroom because I was so tired. There were days I doubted myself. But then there were the good moments. I watched Caleb's grades shoot up to straight A's. He started playing soccer again. I watched Bella stop flinching when adults raised their voices. I watched Hunter breathe easier, his asthma under control now that the house was clean and his meds were regular. I watched Sophie and baby Phoenix grow up loved. I reopened my art studio. I converted the barn into a workshop. I started painting again. Not just for money, but for me. One day, I received a package in the mail. It was from RISD. I had written to the dean, explaining my story. Explaining about the stolen acceptance letter from 10 years ago. The package contained a letter. "Dear Ms. Miller, it is never too late. We have an online degree program. We would be honored to have you." I framed that letter and hung it in the kitchen. I didn't go to campus. I had 5 kids to raise. But I took classes at night, after they were asleep. I reclaimed my dream, piece by piece. 3 years have passed. The kids are thriving. We are a messy, loud, chaotic, happy family. I visited Tiffany in prison once. Just once. She looked old. The prison gray didn't suit her. "Why did you come?" she asked, refusing to look at me. "To tell you that they are happy," I said. She laughed bitterly. "You stole them." "I didn't steal them, Tiffany. You threw them away. You chose money over them. You chose your ego over them." She looked at me then. "I miss them," she whispered. I stood up. Then you should have loved them when you had them. I walked out and never went back. I'm sitting on my porch now. The sun is setting over the fields. Caleb is driving the tractor in the distance, he loves farming. Bella is painting on an easel next to me. I look at my life. It's not the life I imagined when I was 18. It's harder. It's more complicated. But it's real. And it's mine. I took back my name. I took back my future. And I saved 5 innocent lives from the cycle of abuse. Nana Rose would be proud. So, to anyone listening who feels trapped, who feels like they are being used, who feels like the family scapegoat, listen to me. You are stronger than you think. The truth is your weapon. Don't be afraid to use it. Rip up the resignation letter. Open the safe. Speak the truth. Because the only thing better than revenge is happiness. Megan's journey reminds us that family isn't always defined by blood, but by those who truly care for our well-being. In a world where toxic relationships often masquerade as familial duty, her story stands as a powerful testament to the strength required to break generational cycles of abuse. The courage to stand up against exploitation doesn't come easily, it demands we recognize our own worth first. Sometimes, the most difficult battles we face aren't against strangers, but against those who should have protected us from the beginning. The path to healing isn't found in revenge, but in reclaiming what was always rightfully ours, our dignity, our dreams, and our right to happiness. Megan didn't just save herself, she saved 5 innocent lives from perpetuating the same patterns of manipulation and neglect. Her transformation from victim to protector illustrates how our deepest wounds can become our greatest source of compassion and purpose. True resilience isn't about enduring mistreatment, it's about having the wisdom to walk away and rebuild something beautiful from the ashes. What toxic relationships have you had to walk away from to preserve your peace? How did you find the strength to start over? If Megan's journey resonated with you and reminded you that you deserve better, type good in the comments. Remember, sometimes the family we choose brings more healing than the family we're born into.